I met Marissa at a Christmas party in my second year out of college. I wasn't planning on going, it was one of those +1 invites through a friend, and I only agreed because the food was supposed to be good. She was there with a cousin, standing near the fireplace, sipping something that looked like cider and laughing like she meant it. We didn't talk much that night, just a few passing comments about the music and the strange appetizer choices. But there was something about her presence that stuck. A few weeks later, I ran into her again, completely by chance, at a bookstore downtown. We remembered each other immediately, shared a laugh, and ended up getting coffee that same afternoon. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't fireworks. It was simple. Easy. The kind of connection you don't have to chase. We started dating not long after. Marissa worked in early education and had this natural warmth around kids, around people in general. She brought light into rooms without trying to. I was quieter, more structured, financial analyst by trade, the kind of guy who scheduled vacations 6 months out and color-coded the calendar. Somehow, we balanced each other. We got married 3 years later. Small ceremony in the park, close family only. No DJ, no fancy hall, just vows under a tree and a dinner that felt like home. I still remember the way she looked walking toward me, steady, certain, like there wasn't a single doubt in her mind. That stayed with me for a long time. Our first daughter, Sophie, was born about a year into our marriage. She had her mother's eyes, wide and curious, always studying people. Then came Lucy, 2 years later, just as bold but with a wilder streak. They filled the house with that constant background hum of movement and noise that only kids can generate. Marissa took a step back from work to be home more, and I took on a few extra hours at the firm. We made it work. It was never easy, but it always felt worth it. Weekends were for the park or backyard picnics, art projects on the kitchen table, late-night ice cream runs just because. I handled bedtime routines, Marissa handled mornings. I liked brushing their hair after bath time, reading the same story 3 nights in a row, letting them stay up 10 minutes past bedtime when they asked nicely. We were a team. Always passing off tasks, covering for each other, shifting in and out of the chaos together. Our house wasn't big, but it was filled with life. Crayon drawings on the fridge. Shoes piled by the door. The smell of Marissa's cooking, which she always claimed wasn't good, even though we all knew better. We didn't travel much, but we made every holiday feel like an event, decorations, music, routines the girls would talk about for weeks afterward. It was a good life. Familiar, full, the kind of steady rhythm people hope for when they say, settling down. And I loved it. I really did. Marissa had a way of making even the small things feel important. If the girls brought home scribbled drawings from daycare, she'd tape them up like gallery pieces. When I came home late from work, she'd leave a note next to a reheated plate that just said, "Missed you tonight." She always remembered to refill the hand soap before it ran out, always packed snacks for long drives without me asking. We settled into the kind of domestic rhythm that doesn't draw attention to itself. Mornings were a little chaotic. Lucy never wanted to wear socks, Sophie always needed help finding something she swore she just had in her hand, but Marissa moved through it like she'd been doing it her whole life. Calm, firm, quick with a hug and quicker with a "let's go," shoes on. I handled the school drop-offs. Sophie had started kindergarten, and Lucy was in preschool 3 days a week. Marissa went back to part-time teaching. She'd talk about her students at dinner, funny things they said, moments when one of them made a connection for the first time. She loved it. You could see it in the way she lit up when she talked about the classroom. We still made time for each other. Maybe not as much as we should have, but enough. Friday nights were usually takeout and a movie. After the kids were down, we'd stretch out on the couch, half watching whatever was on, her feet under my leg, a bowl of popcorn between us. Sometimes we talked through the whole thing. Sometimes we just sat in the quiet. We took the girls to the zoo that spring. Sophie was obsessed with flamingos, and Lucy fell in love with a red panda she refused to stop talking about for weeks. We took photos, bought too many snacks, let them stay up past bedtime. Marissa made a scrapbook page for it the next day, pink stickers, doodles, little handwritten captions under each photo. She said it helped her hold on to things. They grow up so fast, she told me once. I don't want to forget the pieces. She was close with her mom. They'd talk a few times a week. Sometimes about the kids, sometimes about nothing. Her mom would come over to help when I was out late. She loved reading to the girls and always brought fruit snacks in her purse, which they thought was the best thing ever. I liked that Marissa had that support, that closeness. I came from a smaller, quieter family. Fewer traditions. Less noise. We weren't flashy. We weren't the perfect Instagram family. But I thought we were happy. We talked about maybe taking a trip out west next year, something with mountains or quiet trails. Marissa said she missed real nature. She grew up near woods and used to hike all the time. She said she wanted to pass that on to the girls, not just screens and noise, but fresh air and space to think. I promised we'd make it happen. Save a little extra, block off the time. It felt good to plan for things. Like everything had a future we could still grow into. Summer came in full swing, and with it, a kind of easy joy that seemed to settle over the house. The girls were home more, of course, and that meant the days were louder, messier, and somehow more complete. The backyard became their kingdom, plastic slides, sidewalk chalk, sun hats they refused to wear for more than 5 minutes. Marissa picked up a little inflatable pool for the back patio and turned it into an all-day affair. Popsicles, water fights, the works. She'd sit on the steps with sunglasses and a book she never got around to reading, laughing every time one of the girls tried to splash her and missed. She was good at making the ordinary feel like something more. It was one of the things I loved most about her. Even when the days felt long, even when she was tired, she still found ways to keep things moving. I'd get home from work and find dinner half prepped, the girls in pajamas with wet hair and sticky fingers, and Marissa with her sleeves rolled up, wiping down the table with that same focused calm she always had. At night, we'd talk about small things, school decisions, groceries, things the girls had said that made her laugh. She was always taking mental notes, little stories she wanted to remember. I should write them down, she'd say, and sometimes she did, on the back of receipts or inside a planner already filled with sticky notes. She started going to yoga again, too. Once or twice a week, in the evenings after dinner. She said it helped her feel like herself, stretch out the tension, clear her mind. I supported it. Told her to take whatever time she needed. I handled bath time, bedtime, and she'd get home just as I was coming downstairs from the final story. She'd kiss the girls goodnight even if they were already asleep. The routine worked. We weren't doing anything dramatic. No big changes, no unexpected moves. Just life, rolling along. We took a weekend trip to the lake in late July, just the 4 of us. A cabin with spotty service and old wooden floors that creaked when the wind picked up. The girls loved it. We caught fireflies, grilled burgers, told stories around a little fire pit. Marissa took photos of everything. She always did. Later she printed one of us all together, the girls on our laps, arms tangled around each other, and framed it on the mantel when we got home. She kissed me that night with both hands on my face. Soft, slow. Like she meant it. The start of the school year always brought a new kind of rhythm. Sophie had moved up to 2nd grade, and Lucy was starting full-time kindergarten. Mornings got earlier, backpacks got heavier, and lunchboxes became a nightly chore. Marissa handled most of that. She had a way of remembering exactly who liked what, which snack was for Tuesdays only, which thermos was the one that doesn't smell weird. The girls trusted her completely. So did I. We carved out more structured evenings, homework, dinner, a little TV before bed. Marissa made chili on Mondays, tacos on Thursdays. It was never official, but we slipped into those patterns like muscle memory. She said it helped the girls feel safe, knowing what came next. And truthfully, it helped me, too. Work had picked up again for me, a couple of clients going through changes, longer hours, more days where I came home to the table already cleared. Marissa never gave me a hard time about it. She was always patient, always understanding. If anything, she encouraged me to keep going. "We're fine here," she'd say. "Just don't forget to breathe." She'd text me little updates during the day, Lucy's drawing of a horse that looked like a potato, Sophie's spelling test result, what they were watching after school. Sometimes it was just a photo of the girls sitting on the couch, feet tucked under them, hair falling into their faces. The kind of photos that stopped me in the middle of whatever spreadsheet I was buried in. Every so often, I'd come home and find candles lit in the kitchen, the house quiet, the girls already asleep. Marissa would pull me in with that same look she gave me when we first started dating, playful, steady, like she still saw me through all the clutter of daily life. We still laughed together. Still talked late at night, lying in bed with the lights off, voices low. We talked about the girls getting older. About whether we were done having kids. About maybe moving closer to her mom in a few years, once the girls were more independent. It all felt far away, but in the good kind of way, future things you plan for just to feel connected to something bigger than the present. I never thought to question anything. There were no fights, no strange absences, no distance I could feel. She was here. She was present. And I still loved coming home to her. It was a Saturday morning when the first flicker hit. Nothing dramatic. Nothing obvious. We were getting ready to head out, grocery run, hardware store, maybe ice cream after if the girls didn't melt down before noon. I was in the garage trying to find the right screwdriver when I heard Marissa's voice carry through the kitchen window. Light, laughing, almost flirtatious. I paused, listening without meaning to. She was on the phone. I couldn't make out the words, just the tone. Familiar, but not the version I usually got. It wasn't the voice she used with her friends when they caught up. It wasn't the clipped, distracted tone she used with customer service. It was softer. Warmer. Like a private joke was hanging between the lines. A moment later, she was off the call and calling out to the girls to get their shoes on. I didn't say anything. We loaded into the car. She smiled at me like nothing had happened. Maybe nothing had. But that tone stuck with me, not because I recognized the words, but because I didn't. That night, we were watching something on the couch after the kids went to bed. She was curled up next to me, head on my shoulder, but her phone buzzed twice. Not loud. Just 2 short pulses. She checked it quickly and smiled, that same soft smile I'd seen earlier. Then she turned the phone face down and tucked it under the blanket. "Who was that?" I asked casually. "Just Emma," she said. "Her kid's having a meltdown over a missing Lego." I laughed, and she leaned in to kiss my cheek. But something about it was off. Not wrong. Just, rehearsed. Later that week, I came home from work a little earlier than usual. Marissa wasn't expecting me. I walked into the house and found her in the kitchen, phone in one hand, staring out the window. Her posture shifted when she saw me. A quick straighten of the shoulders. The phone disappeared into the drawer where we kept the charger. She smiled. "You're home early. Meeting wrapped up fast." She walked over and hugged me, like she was trying to erase whatever moment I'd interrupted. We didn't talk about it. I didn't bring it up again. But I started paying closer attention. Not because I suspected anything. Not really. We were happy. Solid. That's what I kept telling myself. But still, little things. Small changes. Unnamed feelings. Marissa didn't seem distant. If anything, she was more affectionate than usual. More engaged with the girls. Quicker to laugh. But sometimes I'd catch her looking at her phone with a softness that wasn't meant for me. Or staying in the car a few extra minutes after getting home, like she needed a moment before coming inside. Nothing concrete. Nothing that couldn't be explained. But it planted a seed. One I didn't want to water, but couldn't quite ignore. The feeling didn't go away. If anything, it settled in more quietly, like dust in corners I didn't know to check. I started noticing things I probably wouldn't have before, or maybe I had, and just never thought twice about them. Marissa changed the password on her phone. That wasn't a huge deal in itself. I hadn't gone through her phone before, never needed to. We weren't that kind of couple. But we'd always kept it unlocked around each other, shared Spotify, calendar apps, that sort of thing. When I reached for it one afternoon to check the weather, it was locked. New passcode? I asked. Oh, she said, barely looking up. Yeah, Lucy kept messing with it during her YouTube marathons. It locked me out last week. I nodded, said nothing else. She didn't offer the new one. And I didn't ask. Another time, I went to pick up the girls from school, and one of the teachers mentioned something about how nice it is when both parents can split pickup duties. I just smiled and agreed, but the comment stuck with me. I hadn't known Marissa was doing pickups lately. She'd said she was working all week. Meetings. Consults. Calls. Maybe she had rescheduled, or maybe the teacher had her days mixed up. I didn't bring it up to her. I told myself it didn't matter. One evening I went to grab something from the trunk and noticed an unfamiliar smell, faint but sharp, something floral, something I knew wasn't part of our lives. Marissa didn't wear perfume. She said it gave her headaches. This wasn't lotion or shampoo. It was something that lingered too long for something accidental. She came out a minute later to toss something in the recycling bin. You drive anywhere today? I asked, casually. Just groceries. Why? Nothing, thought the car smelled a little different. She leaned in through the open driver's side door and sniffed. Weird. I don't smell anything. She smiled and kissed my cheek. Maybe your senses are finally going. We laughed, but I didn't forget it. Another night, the girls were in bed, and I was finishing dishes while she scrolled through her phone on the couch. I could see the reflection in the kitchen window, fast typing, reading, smiling again. When I dried my hands and walked in, she locked the screen and slipped the phone behind a throw pillow. That was the moment something shifted in me. Not into certainty, but into awareness. I wasn't being paranoid. I wasn't inventing things. But I was definitely on the outside of something. Whatever it was, Marissa didn't want to share it. She still kissed me goodnight. Still sat beside me at dinner. Still laughed at the girls' jokes. But there was a piece of her moving elsewhere. Quietly. Intentionally. And I couldn't name it yet, but I could feel it all the same. I started waking up before my alarm. Not by much, 10, 15 minutes maybe, but always with the same low, uneasy hum in my chest. Marissa slept beside me, curled toward the wall, her breathing even and soft. Everything looked the same. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was watching something slip through my fingers in slow motion. The girls kept us busy. School projects, soccer practice, birthday parties that required more planning than our own anniversary. Marissa handled most of it with her usual calm, clipboard in hand, grocery lists on the fridge, snacks pre-packed and labeled like she was running a small army. But every now and then, I'd see her pause for just a second longer than usual after hanging up a call. Her expression wouldn't change, but something would pass through her, like a flicker of something unfinished, or unspoken. Then she'd catch my eye, smile, and go back to stirring the pasta or wiping Lucy's face clean. One evening after the girls were in bed, I asked if she wanted to watch a movie. We used to do that almost every night. Just something on in the background, something to sink into after the chaos of the day. She hesitated. I told Emily I'd FaceTime her tonight. She's dealing with some family drama. I nodded. Everything okay? Yeah, just the usual. I might be a while. She headed upstairs with her phone and closed the bedroom door behind her. I sat in the living room, staring at the muted TV screen. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. I walked up the stairs slowly, not because I was trying to sneak, but because I didn't know what I was doing. I paused outside our door. I didn't hear her voice. Just the low murmur of something, not a call. A video maybe. Or silence. I walked away before I could think better of it. Another day, I had to leave work early. Sick kid in Lucy's class meant all the parents got called. When I got home, Marissa's car was in the driveway, which surprised me. She'd said she had meetings all afternoon. I stepped inside quietly, mostly out of habit. The house was silent. She wasn't in the kitchen. Not in the living room. Not upstairs. When I finally found her, she was in the laundry room, sitting on the floor next to the dryer with her phone in her hand. Her expression changed the second she looked up and saw me. "Everything okay?" she asked, standing quickly. "Yeah, Lucy's school called. I came to grab her." She nodded too fast. "Right. I forgot about the notice this morning. I didn't push it." But later that night, I kept replaying the image of her sitting there alone, phone still glowing, eyes locked on something I wasn't supposed to see. I didn't ask who she was texting anymore. I didn't check the calendar to see if her appointments lined up. I didn't look at the call logs or the way she reached for her phone when she thought I wasn't watching. Because I already knew something was wrong. I just didn't know how far gone it was. It was a Sunday afternoon. Quiet, sunny, one of those early fall days where the light hits just right through the windows. Marissa had gone out, said she was meeting her mom for lunch and maybe stopping by a craft store after. The girls and I stayed home. I was helping Sophie with a school poster, gluing little cutouts onto a bright blue background while Lucy sat on the floor behind us, coloring and humming to herself. Out of nowhere, Lucy asked, "When are we going to play with Daddy?" I looked up from the glue stick. "We're playing now, kiddo." She shook her head, still coloring. "Not you, the other Daddy." I laughed a little, confused. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" She looked up, crayon in hand, and asked it again like it was the most normal thing in the world, "Where is Daddy? When is he coming over?" Sophie didn't say anything. She just kept gluing. Her little mouth was pressed into a thin, serious line, like she knew not to join in. "Hey, Lou," I said gently, "who are you talking about?" She stared at me for a moment, then looked back down at her page. "Just Daddy. The one with the dog. We played hide and seek there. He has the big backyard." It was a strange kind of moment, the way time seems to slow around something you weren't ready to hear. My mind scrambled for explanations. Maybe she was talking about a friend's house. Maybe someone else's dad who babysat once. Maybe it was just pretend. But her voice was too certain. I pressed again, carefully. "Where did you see him, Lucy?" She shrugged. "I don't know. I just like him. He lets me have orange soda." I felt my stomach drop, a low, deep ache like gravity doubling inside me. Sophie still hadn't looked up. I turned to her slowly. "Soph." She glanced at me, then down again. "We're not supposed to talk about him." I could barely get the words out. "Who said that?" She paused. "Mom." Silence filled the room. I didn't push them. I just sat there for another few minutes, pretending to focus on the poster board, hands still moving. My heart, though, wasn't in the room anymore. Marissa came home an hour later. She walked through the door, kissed the girls on the head, smiled at me like nothing in the world was out of place. I nodded back. But something had already broken. That night, after the girls were asleep, I sat alone in the living room. No TV. No music. Just me, the couch, and a dull roaring in my head that wouldn't quiet down. I didn't have answers yet. But I had questions I couldn't ignore anymore. And this time, I was going to find them. I waited 2 days before I did anything. Not because I didn't believe them, what Lucy and Sophie had said, but because I needed to be sure I was thinking clearly. I kept playing it over in my head, not you, the other daddy. The soda. The dog. The backyard. And Sophie's quiet voice, saying Mom told them not to talk about him. There were explanations. I wanted there to be. Maybe it was an uncle she called Daddy as a game. Maybe some old friend of Marissa's the girls saw once or twice. Maybe it wasn't what it sounded like. But I knew better. I made an appointment at a private clinic 2 towns over. I didn't tell Marissa. I took an early lunch from work, drove there in silence, hands tight on the wheel the whole way. They took cheek swabs from me, and I brought 2 samples I'd quietly taken at home, strands from the girls' hairbrushes. They said I'd have results in a few days. I paid in cash. I barely slept that week. Marissa didn't notice, or pretended not to. She still kissed me goodbye, still asked if I needed anything at the store, still sat beside me on the couch while we watched shows I wasn't even seeing. I wanted to ask her. I wanted to just say it. But I knew if I did, she'd have time to prepare a lie. I wanted the truth first. The results came back on a Thursday. Sealed envelope, handed to me by the receptionist like it was just another file. I didn't open it until I was parked behind a gas station 3 blocks away. My hands shook. The words were simple. Clinical. 2 paternity exclusions. Sophie and Lucy were not biologically mine. I didn't move for a long time. Just sat in the driver's seat, staring at those 2 lines like they were written in another language. 9 years. 9 years I had raised them. Held them through fevers, taught them to ride bikes, kissed every scraped knee. And none of it had ever been real, not in the way I thought it was. I went home around 6 p.m. Marissa was in the kitchen, stirring something on the stove. She looked up and smiled. "Hey, you're late." I held the envelope in my hand. Set it on the counter. "What's that?" I didn't answer. She wiped her hands and opened it. Her eyes scanned the page. Her face didn't change, just dropped, slightly, like something she'd been bracing for had finally arrived. "Say something," I said. She closed the folder slowly. "It's not what you think," she whispered. "No." My voice cracked. "Because what I think is that you've been lying to me for nearly a decade. That those girls, our girls, aren't mine. They are yours." "No. They're not." She started crying then. Soft at first, then sharp. "I didn't plan for it to happen," she said. "It was a mistake that kept happening." "Who is he?" She hesitated. "Marissa." "Who is he?" "Derek," she said. "We were together in high school. He moved back a few years ago." "How long?" "A while." "Lucy?" She nodded, sobbing now. "Both." I didn't scream. I didn't slam anything. I just walked upstairs, packed a bag, and left. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what the next day looked like. But I knew I couldn't look her in the eye anymore. Still, as I pulled away, the only thing I could think about was the girls. Not hers. Not mine. But ours. And I wasn't about to lose them. I stayed at my brother's for a week. Just a spare room and a blow-up mattress, but it gave me time to breathe. Time to think without the weight of her voice in the next room. Every night, I stared at the ceiling and tried to understand how it all happened. How someone you trusted with your life could lie to your face for nearly a decade. But the thing that haunted me more than the betrayal was the quiet in the house I'd left behind. The sound of Sophie's laugh. Lucy's wild, stomping feet. The bedtime books. The little voices calling, "Daddy," like it was the most natural word in the world. And it had been. For them, it was. I called my lawyer the morning after I left. Told him I needed to know my options. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want a fight for property or support. I just wanted one thing, to stay their father. Legally. Permanently. No matter what Marissa had done, no matter who their biological father was, I wasn't letting those girls go. It was complicated, but not impossible. I'd been listed on both birth certificates. I had raised them since birth. There was no sign of the other man stepping forward, no paternity filings, no custody requests. My lawyer said in cases like this, the court cared most about what was in the best interest of the children, and ripping them away from the only father they'd ever known was not going to look good for her. We filed for legal custody that same week. Marissa called once, crying. She wanted to talk, not about the affair, not about Derek, but about the girls. She said she never wanted to take them from me. That she knew I was their father in every way that counted. I told her I didn't care what she wanted. I told her I was going to fight for them because they were mine, not by blood, maybe, but by love, time, and choice. I told her she didn't get to make decisions for me anymore. I picked the girls up that Friday for the weekend. Marissa tried to keep it normal, a hug goodbye, a bag of clothes, a few careful instructions written on a sticky note. Sophie was quiet in the car. Lucy fell asleep on the way. We stopped for pizza. Watched a movie. Read 3 bedtime stories, even though they only asked for one. When I tucked them in, Sophie looked up at me and whispered, "Are you still mad at Mommy?" I hesitated, then brushed the hair from her forehead. "That's not something you need to worry about." She nodded slowly, then said, "I'm glad you came back." I kissed her cheek and turned off the light. That night, I sat in the hallway outside their room, staring at the soft glow of their nightlight bleeding under the door. My chest ached. Not from anger. Not anymore. Just from how much I still loved them. And how much I knew I always would. The custody process didn't drag out. Marissa didn't fight me. Whether it was guilt or recognition that she'd already done enough damage, I'll never know. But when the papers came through, she signed them without a court battle. We formalized it, shared legal custody, but primary physical custody went to me. The girls would live with me, go to school from my address, sleep in their beds under my roof. She would have weekends, holidays split, and supervised visits in the beginning. The day I told Sophie and Lucy they'd be staying with me full-time, Sophie blinked at me like she already knew. "Does Mommy know?" she asked. "She does," I said. "Is she sad?" "I think she's trying to be okay," I told her. "But this isn't about her. It's about what's best for you too. And I think being here, where it's steady, where it's home, is what's best." She nodded and went back to drawing. Lucy crawled into my lap and asked if we could have pancakes for dinner. We did. The house felt like it had been rearranged somehow. Same furniture, same walls, but the air had changed. Not heavier, clearer. The silence didn't sting anymore. The emptiness was gone. It wasn't a broken home, it was just one we had to rebuild on better ground. Marissa still saw the girls. She never missed a weekend. She brought crafts and little gifts, tried hard to be present. I didn't stop her. I didn't poison the well. The girls would grow up knowing who raised them, but they'd also know their mother didn't walk away when it got hard. As angry as I had been, I couldn't let it bleed into them. That wasn't who I wanted to be. Derek never came forward. Not a word. No letters. No visits. No fights. I don't even know if he knew. Or maybe he did, and this was just the kind of man he was, always hiding behind someone else's life, someone else's love. I stopped caring. I focused on my girls. I learned how to French braid. I helped with science fair projects. I made school lunches and forgot to sign field trip forms and got better at bedtime songs. I was tired most days. Overwhelmed sometimes. But every single night, when they called me daddy and hugged me tight around the neck, I knew I hadn't lost anything. I'd chosen to stay. To fight for them. And now they were mine, fully, permanently, without condition. They were never a mistake. Not even close. If anything, they were the only truth that had ever mattered.